Welcome to Ladies Who Jazz, where each month I interview and feature a different female jazz musician. Today we're in Montreal and we have Christine Tassan, who is a guitarist, vocalist, composer, and arranger. Christine, thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. It's fun to have a website with a female playing gypsy jazz music or jazz music.
So how did you get into jazz?
In fact, it's a long time ago. When I was like 20, I heard jazz music, but not gypsy jazz. It was jazz music, and I didn't play at that time much jazz. I didn't know very much about jazz, and then it's more like 15 years ago that I heard Django Reinhardt. I had a CD, and I just was, wow, what kind of music is this? And so I grabbed my guitar and I tried to do the same thing and to understand what he was doing on his guitar. So that's the way I started playing jazz and gypsy jazz music.
Can you talk a little bit about your training? Are you formally trained? Are you self-taught, or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. I took lessons when I was teenager, private lessons. I went 1 year to the conservatoire, and then I really listened to music and tried to do it by myself. So it's more like autodidact. I mean, that I learned it by myself. Same thing for gypsy jazz. It's when I started like 15 years ago. Here in Montreal, there were nearly nobody was playing that kind of music, so you couldn't find teachers, you couldn't find guitars, you couldn't find picks that you use for gypsy jazz. So I really listened to some gypsy players who were coming to Montreal. I went to the shows and just listened to them, and that's it. That's how I started.
How is it being a musician here in Montreal?
Montreal is a nice city for... it's not too expensive, so for musicians it's okay to live here. For jazz, there are some jazz clubs, but very few clubs. So it's not so easy to play here in Montreal. I play in Montreal regularly, but I also play a lot outside of Montreal with my band. And so yeah, it's a nice city for musicians, but you have to work hard to find some gigs.
Speaking of your band, can you talk a little bit about your band, Christine Tassan and the Imposters, and what you're doing right now and what you have coming up?
So that band, Christine Tassan and the Imposters, exists for more than 10 years now. It's a whole woman band. So that's a bit political for me to have that band with only women playing in the band, because there are so few women playing jazz in general, but gypsy jazz in particular, there's nearly not a lot of women playing that type of jazz. And we've been touring a lot in Quebec, but also now we tour in the rest of Canada and a little bit in Europe too. So, for example, we're going in 2 weeks, we are going to British Columbia and Alberta for 3 weeks. So that's really cool. Then in January, we're going to Europe. And then again, we're going to British Columbia and Alberta. So that's cool. And we have a CD coming for next April.
Can you talk about the concept of your CD?
Yes, it's our fourth CD. So for the three first CDs, it was more like... a mix between covers that we interpret in our own way and compositions, and we have songs and instrumental tunes also. And for this new CD, it's a bit different because we wanted to have a different concept, and what we did is that we took the songs from Félix Leclerc, which is one of the greatest folk singer in Quebec. And Félix Leclerc met Django Reinhardt while he was in France. It was in 1951, I think. So what we did, we took the songs from Félix Leclerc and the songs from Django Reinhardt, and we married the songs. So you find something from Félix Leclerc going into something from Django Reinhardt, or the contrary. And I think it works pretty well. So it's totally different from what we've already done.
Speaking of Django Reinhardt, who are your top 3 jazz influences?
Django Reinhardt for sure. I like Wes Montgomery. I discovered a few years ago Emily Remler, so I really love what she does. I listen to Stéphane Grappelli, obviously, also. I love Richard Galliano. Do you know him? He's a French accordionist. Oh, cool. Yeah, I really love what he does. That's it for what comes to my mind now.
Have you faced any challenges doing what you do and to continue doing what you do as a musician?
Challenges, I think they're like every day. To be a musician is not so easy. I think the most difficult thing is to keep on what you like doing and not, I don't know how to say that in English, but not doing a lot of things rather than the thing you have to do. And for myself, I think it's more like being on stage. That's really what I love to do. And also composing. And that's not easy for me because, when you have a band, you have a lot of things to do, a lot of administration, and that's pretty boring. But you have to do that if you want your band to continue. So for me, the challenging part is really to focus on what I really love to do is like composing and being on stage. And practicing, playing music.
What advice do you have for the girls and ladies out there who would like to get started playing jazz?
Just start. I hear a lot of people saying, I would love to play music or I would love to do... Just do it. For girls in particular, I think, it's... I don't know if I have a particular advice for women or girls. It just... You have to really believe in what you want to do with music, and just do it and keep on it. Because it's true that it's not easy for women because there's a lot of men playing jazz and music in general, and we don't have the same spirit. We're different. So sometimes we can be the only one. Most of the time, except with my band, but most of the time I'm the only woman in the band. So sometimes you just feel that you're not totally into it because you're just a woman. And with gypsy music, it's not easy because it's more like cultural. I would say it's not easy for women. It's not easy for me to go into a gypsy camp and just play with men because it's not really allowed, or they feel bad about that. So it's more difficult for me as a woman to learn that style because I'm not in touch with gypsy people.
For the audience out there, can you please share a musical idea, lick, or concept, or practice routine, or anything just to share with the audience?
When I need an idea or something, I just go on YouTube and I try to find something that I really like or a new idea, and then I just transcribe it and try to practice it and try to integrate it to my playing. Another thing is that a lot of people just learn licks, and I don't know if it's because I have some difficulty to just memorize licks, but what I try to do in my playing is more like singing what I hear in my head. So sometimes what you hear in your head is always the same thing, so you need a new idea or something like that. That's why I go just on YouTube and try to find new ideas on a particular song. But that's really important to try to develop your own voice. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool, very cool. And one last question for you before we start playing. What is your favorite food?
My favorite food? Oh, I love sushi. I like Italian food too. Okay. Yeah.
That's great. Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview, Christine. For the audience out there, if you've enjoyed this interview and would like to see other ladies who jazz, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you are a lady who plays jazz or knows of someone who does and would like to see them featured on the show, please contact me here or on my website, lisalouguitar.com. I'm Lisa Lou. This is Christine Tassan. Keep shedding.